This is a Xenolink data view analysis for Jack Holdma TennisServe. We'll begin with the performance profile, and in the performance profile, we'll focus on first the performance factor. We see with the performance factor that we have a fairly high, highly effective use of total speed output. Remember, the performance factor measures how effective the athlete is in utilizing total speed output at the point of impact. And with Jack's data, we see we have an efficient use of total speed output. We actually have about 90% of the linear speed utilization and about roughly 90% of our internal rotation speed. So we have good use, pretty effective use of our total speed output. We do see that we have a fairly low linear speed output, quite a bit off the normal linear racket speed or miles per hour. However, we have really pretty good internal rotation speed or angular component. So that angular component is helping us out. We want more of both. We want definitely more linear speed out of this action, and we certainly could use some more internal rotation speed, and the combination creates really effective power output. Let's look at the kinetic link. The kinetic link is essentially the measure or the measure of our power generation process. We'll look here at the video, frame 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're about 11, 12 where we're lifting off the ground. If we can draw a line in there, we're basically lifting off the ground here. So the first thing we see is that we actually have good kinetic link coordination between the lower body, the pelvis, and the upper torso. I think we could get quite a bit more speed out of it, but the first thing we want to look at is this taking place while the tennis player, the athlete, is still connected to the ground? We want the lower body acceleration and transfer of speed from lower body to upper body to occur while we're still connected to the ground. Once we lift off the ground, we then see the arm accelerate, so we're going to get immediate elbow extension and internal rotation velocities at that point. But we want the core, we want the lower body speed contribution and our core transfers to occur while we're still connected to the ground. And we do see that with Jack. However, we kind of have limited actual lower body contribution, so limited speed. We could definitely see more speed, and we have definitely limited transfer. So, we would definitely want to see more rotational speed at the pelvis and better transfer to the shoulders, more output and more transfer for sure. So we have good basic coordination, at least from a speed transfer perspective, but we could definitely use more speed. And so again, we look at this stuff from the ground up. We create speed from the ground up. So if we're losing speed at the beginning of this, at the ground interface and at that first transfer point, the core, then obviously we're only working with so much. There's only so much speed that can be created. If we want to create more arm speed, hence more racket speed, we definitely have to create more pelvic speed and transfer that speed more effectively through the core to the arm. Okay, once we get off the ground and we get into our acceleration phase of the shoulder, the racket, we look pretty good. We're actually accelerating at the elbow well. We're decelerating. We're transferring speed pretty well. And we actually have pretty good speed. I mean, we're not that far off of our normals in terms of internal rotation speed. We actually have good loading technique. So overall, arm dynamics pretty good. A little bit of, I think for what we get out of elbow extension speed and for the initial acceleration of the shoulder, we certainly want to work on getting more internal rotation speed, and definitely going to want to work on, creating a strength base for stability and then explosive internal rotation ability. So we're going to want to definitely work on effectively creating rotational speed at the upper body, the shoulders, the upper torso, and then translating that into dynamic explosiveness at the shoulder, the right shoulder, especially internal rotation. We want more internal rotation speed out of this. But all in all, we have good coordination. Our main weakness is really lower body contribution and transfer through the core. We'll look at stability. Stability, what we're looking for here is the movement of the center of mass forward and then some stabilization as we transfer through the core. And we're getting that for the most part. We have a good kind of press forward, if you will, while we're accelerating the lower body. That's the phases in there. And then we stabilize pretty well forward momentum as we transfer into the upper body and then into the arm. So lower body mechanics are actually pretty good. So the really what we're looking at here is speed generation. In some cases, we have a poor coordination of the center of mass, so it's there's some mechanical issue as well as speed issue. Sometimes mechanical issue driving the speed issue. In this case, mechanical issue, biomechanical issue is not there for the most part. We could get a little better, but mostly we're just talking about speed output. So we want to increase rotational speed at the pelvis. Now we're going to look at our core stability. Core stability looks pretty good. We have what's pretty much kind of your normal lateral bend pattern. Maybe a touch bit of extension, a little extra trunk extension, although we do get back into kind of a neutral, slightly forward flex position at impact. Basically looks pretty good. Probably just a little bit too much of the trunk extension. So to some degree, excessive extension, again, not glaringly over. In some cases, you'll see the extension, and we never really get back to neutral. We'd want this maybe to just be a little less and then a little bit more into this kind of arena. But this can definitely have an impact on arm dynamics because the more extension we have, leaning back we have, the harder it is to internally rotate. So although we have good internal rotation, if we can get a little less extension and move a little bit more closer to neutral, the arm will have a better time internally rotating. This is also going to affect our ability to transfer through the core. So if we have too much trunk extension, it's tough to pass speed from the hips to the shoulders. So core extension, predominantly that kind of instability, predominantly affecting our transfer, but also having a little bit of an impact on total internal rotation speed output. Our loading, we see a good loading pattern actually, and timing on it's pretty good, but we're just not getting a good transfer through from the lower body to the upper body, and we need more speed out of the lower body. So the technique is there and the timing coordination is there. We just need to get more speed, more bang for our buck, so to speak. And that starts with more lower body speed, slightly better core stability, less extension at the spine, and more rotational movement through the torso. Arm loading's pretty good. Timing's pretty good. We could use a little better shoulder deceleration, a little more full kind of connection on this or like kind of speed transfer from torso to arm. But all in all, we look pretty good. Timing of this whole thing looks pretty good. The amounts of load look really good. So overall, loading's good, but that's a function of good coordination. What we're looking for mostly is more speed from the lower body, better core stability so we can push that speed through to the arm, and then the core stability also impacting the arm. But in a lot of ways, what we're really looking for from the arm is a better strength base and more explosive internal rotation speed. A lot of that's going to have to do with better lower body contribution as well. Lastly, we look at racket dynamics, and we see a little bit of choppiness, a little bit of wasted movement, but for the most part, we just don't have a ton of linear speed. We are utilizing a fairly good portion of that. The direction is okay, but we've seen this a couple times. When we have some core instability issues, there is a tendency for the racket dynamics to be affected a little bit. And here we have quite a bit of downward force or downward speed, whereas in a lot of cases we're going to have slightly more up and over kind of acceleration where the racket's striking the ball as it comes up and over as opposed to straight down. We have a little bit more catching on the internal rotation of it. So, speed trajectory is a little, not off, but there's a little bit of a difference there than what we normally see. Partially that has to do with that trunk extension kind of instability thing. But generally, in summary, we've got overall good biomechanics and good internal rotation speed. We're lacking for lower body contribution, and that stems predominantly from just speed output. Transfer that speed through the core is going to stem from, the speed component as well as core instability, and then we want to make sure that we're in a good, stable position at the spine so that we can allow the best internal rotation and deceleration mechanics.